Welcome to episode 6 of the Midtown Madness podcast with Zach Miller and Peter Hale. I'm, of course, Zach Miller, and I'm joined, as always, by Pete Hale. Pete, how's it going?
I'm okay, Zach. I'm hanging in there. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I think I texted you earlier today, and I said, you know what? An NIT run could be fun. Well, the Billikens are postseason bound, just not the postseason tournament we'd hoped for. We are entering into the A10 consolation tournament. So it seems we'll get into that in a minute, but I think we should probably set the stage and go back to the beginning of this week and kind of talk about the bubble watch rundown, because it was a week of it was a roller coaster of a week, I think.
Yeah, being on the outside, knowing for so long in advance that we didn't have an auto bid and we're going to be on the bubble, it meant we had basically 8 full days to kind of sit there and wait it out and watch all these other conference tournaments play out. So we needed a lot of things to break our way. And for a while, it looked like it was kind of going that way.
Yeah, I think that might have helped soften the blow a little bit for Billiken fans. Just the way that it was kind of a slow burn to not making the tournament. You kind of saw things unfolding, and it wasn't as though we were, first out.
Right. Yeah, it was a tough week in that sense. It was really not until Saturday that we kind of got a couple really unfavorable results. But before that, it was mostly in the multi-bid conferences. Favorites were kind of taking care of business. In places like the Big Ten and some of the other conferences, the ACC, most of the conferences were kind of making it look safe, like there wouldn't be any bid stealers coming out. But then on Saturday, we did have kind of a few break the wrong way. When Georgetown got to the Big East final and beat Creighton. And then the one I kept forgetting about out west, because it was all happening so late, was Oregon State and Colorado. Oregon State the night before, I thought Oregon was going to handle them. So that was kind of that was a tough one to wake up to.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people kind of chiming in on that Creighton Georgetown game. A lot of people felt it was a little less than above board. What do you think about that one?
You mean like Creighton just kind of packed it in or something?
I mean, I had the conspiracy theory that the Big East was punishing Greg McDermott and also making amends with Patrick Ewing at the same time. It all fits. I mean,
yeah, narratively, sure, but you're talking about coordinating too many people to make something like that happen. I think Georgetown just kind of started playing some good basketball this week. Before that, we had both Colorado State and Utah State, who we were watching out in the Mountain West. The Mountain West we had a lot of interest in, because we also had Boise State, who did us a favor and lost right away in that tournament. And the way it shook out in the final bracket, it kind of looks like if Utah State and Colorado State had also lost in the first round, we might have been ahead of both of them, because we wound up being so close to them in the end. But they both wound up winning maybe one, or in Utah State's case, maybe 2 games, too many for us to overcome. So that was kind of an unfortunate one in the end in the Mountain West. But then we also had the American, where we were kind of sweating it a little bit with Memphis and with a couple other teams, Cincinnati in the final, but Houston took care of business there, so that was good. And then we had LSU, who got all the way to the final of the SEC. And that was another one. It was kind of a double win for us, because they're knocking out potential bid stealers along the way. And then they're also strengthening that win that we had against them earlier this season, making it a more solid quad 1 win.
It actually, I thought, kind of made this past week kind of fun in a way, and more fun than generally, because I was more tuned into every game. I mean, I think I was like just completely locked into that Butler Xavier game. I think there was a couple AAC games that we got really into. So it made it kind of fun, and like I'm kind of betting without putting money on the line. It's emotional currency that I'm putting on the line.
It's true. I think had we obviously we would have preferred that, but had we beaten Bonaventure and we're just sitting there for 7 nights waiting for VCU, we're not really caring as much about these other games because it's all about that one more game. And maybe had we beaten Bonaventure, that might have been enough to put us in too. Being the third alternate, we were so close.
Yeah, I gotta admit though, I would have taken gladly an NCAA tournament over a week of
Oh yeah,
championship week games that I was
yeah, no
involved
question,
in.
no question. But it did give us more kind of interest throughout the week, sweating every result like that.
But let's talk about the end of the week for the A10. Let's go ahead and talk about the A10 championship game. The Bonnies are your A10 champions. I'm personally happy about that because anytime VCU doesn't win something, that makes me happy. Pete, what did you think of this game and the Bonnies as the conference representative?
Yeah, I don't mind the result either. I had a feeling going into the game, and I think most people did, that both teams were safe. And we've also seen on the Sunday games, especially. I'm not sure how much impact, if both teams are safe, how much it has on seeding. So I'm not sure that would have moved the needle much for either team in terms of seed either. But yeah, I'm fine with Bonaventure winning it all. We knocked them out 2 years ago to win the thing, and I don't mind that they had it this time. I kind of like when the 1 seed in a conference wins the conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels, especially maybe not in the A10 as much as in the 1 bid conferences, but it does feel like justice when that happens. And these were clearly the top 2 teams. So yeah, I'm not sad to see VCU lose. Did you get a chance to watch the whole game?
I watched most of it. I think I knew Bonaventure had it kind of about 15 minutes into the first half. It didn't feel like, you kind of, everything leading up to it. It was funny because everyone leading up to it was like, Mark Schmidt gets 5 days or 7 days to prepare for VCU. It's over. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. And going into the game, I was just like, yeah, I'm confident in Bonaventure. I just don't see, VCU.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, VCU didn't shoot it particularly well. They were all right. But it wasn't one of those games where like Bones went off necessarily.
And he had 3 fouls.
Yeah, and he went to the free throw line a lot, got a lot done there. I mean, he still had his usual game, but he was a little turnover prone in this one too. So it was just kind of it wasn't his cleanest game. Not that VCU plays a clean game to begin with, but it just kind of felt like a couple of our games this season where maybe like that first Dayton game, we were just kind of held at arm's distance the whole time. And it kind of felt the same way here. VCU was never really out of it. But I kind of felt like Bonaventure was gonna be that team.
Yeah. Going into the bracket reveal, I don't think there's anything more we can really say or that our listeners really care about the A10 championship game. But going into the bracket reveal, what percentage did you give, and we're talking about the NCAA bracket here, what percentage did you give the Billikens going in?
Probably going in, I mean, that's an answer that would change throughout the week.
Right.
I was probably going into this week about 25% confident. And then over the course of the week, it kind of grew and grew until last night and this morning. And I think I was back down to about 25. And I probably would be less than that, except for I thought, well, maybe we're just kind of one of those teams that they look at us and just go, they got screwed a couple ways by COVID this season. Everybody talks about the long layoff and how we had such a longer one than anyone else, came out of it, lost 2 games, and maybe they wipe out that whole sort of 5 weeks or whatever. But I think the other thing that kind of gets underrated about what COVID did this season is when you looked at what our schedule was going to be heading into this season, what we knew we had with that Orlando tournament, with some of the other non-conference games we had, and then what we ended up with in terms of our schedule. Yes, everyone lost games, but our strength of schedule took at least a 100-point hit. And I haven't rerun the math postseason, but just kind of based on preseason rankings and kind of what teams looked like last year, we easily dropped 100 points in strength of schedule just because of that. So it's not just that we had fewer games plus the COVID layoff. We already came out of the gate with fewer opportunities to get good wins. And I don't think that hit power conference teams as hard because the Big Ten is still going to play all those other Big Ten teams. It's probably, and I haven't looked for other teams in the A10 or the American or the Mountain West, but I think that's the level where the programs probably got hit the hardest in terms of strength of schedule.
I had an idea going into this podcast that I was going to give both of us a chance to blame one thing specifically for the bill that the Billikens couldn't control for not getting into the NCAA tournament, just to whine about it for 1 second and then move on to the real reason why the Billikens didn't make the tournament. So go ahead and give me your one reason, your big scapegoat that isn't anybody around the Billikens.
I think that would be it. I think it would just be the strength of schedule hit. Had in a compressed schedule, had we been able to kind of keep some of those same opponents that we had, and we kept a couple, but most of them we lost. If we had been able to maintain that solid of a non-conference schedule, we would have had more road games. We would have had more quad one games. And we wound up losing all of that. And I think, again, everybody wants to point to the COVID layoff, but I think that's probably an even bigger factor because a lot of teams had to shut down this season. So whether they had to shut down as long as we did, or, some teams, like my wife's a Xavier fan, they had to shut down 3 different times. So they wound up having almost as long a time off as we did. So, I hate to just say, oh, that's it, because everybody had to deal with it to some extent. So I think my scapegoat is just, we couldn't point to the schedule and say, look at everything we accomplished. So that's mine. What's yours?
I'm going with TV Teddy Valentine. He cost us an NCAA tournament bid. Flat out.
Yeah.
Now we're on to serious talk. We saw leading up to the NCAA tournament selection show a lot of the official Billiken outlets really campaigning. Travis Ford, pointed to the COVID shutdown many, many times, pointed to the hardships this team went through, looking to garner sympathy. And we all know why. That's totally fair. I can't fault him for doing his best to sell the program. That's what he does day in, day out when he recruits. However, is it time for him to, at the end of the NIT, is it time for him to take ownership of the games? Is it time for him to take ownership as the coach and as the team in general for a season where we had the most talented team, the deepest team, and we didn't make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of other teams that had to deal with COVID and other, all the issues that came with it. So yeah, I think I would like to see him kind of own up to a little bit more of this about how what we could have done differently and how we didn't execute in certain ways. I kind of look at our losses, and you could take out any one of those losses, and it really changes the narrative of the season. It probably changes our resume quite a bit. We lost to Dayton twice. You take one of those out, and we look a lot better. That LaSalle loss was obviously a bad one. If we have that Minnesota one, well then, we're going into non-conference undefeated. We're going into the COVID pause undefeated, and we have a nice road win. Any one throughout the season, VCU on the road or Bonaventure to get into the A10 final. It's really such a fine line because you grab any one of those and the whole narrative changes. So the big hesitation I have about blaming all the external factors is, after those first 2 losses coming off the COVID pause, neither of which were blowouts, but we looked pretty flat and pretty, not very good. We played great defense in the next 4 games, rattled off a 4-game winning streak before then losing again. So I kind of wonder, like, we lost games after that 4-game winning streak, and that we were capable of playing good basketball after the COVID pause, clearly, because we did for 2+ weeks. So what happened in the games after that? I just don't understand. execution in a few of those. So it's hard. It's hard to look back at this era of Goodwin and French and 4 years of those guys and a lot of bad luck and a lot of external circumstances that no one could have foreseen, and that's not on them. But at the same time, all we have to show for it is one tournament appearance, and it was a blowout loss. So that's a pretty tough pill to swallow.
It's kind of amazing to look at this program. Sorry, somebody just called me and it went into my headphones and it just completely got me just shaken up. But you look at this program in the last 20 years and maybe even less, but you have Rick Majerus comes to town. He pulls in this team. He builds this team. You go to the CBI finals, and then the off the court issue happens. You have Travis Ford comes in. He builds a team. Well, sorry, Rick Majerus passes away, and now you have Jim Cruz, who, for better or for worse, for lack of a better word, tanked the program. You bring in Travis Ford, who brings in these great recruits. We're ready to go. Then you have another off the court issue. Then you win an NCAA, or you win an A10 championship. You look ready to potentially repeat it in 2020. COVID happens, and then it just extends into 20. This program, man, I hate people who blame the shit on curses, but man, it's stacking up all around us.
Yeah, there's always a setback. Yeah, I mean, there's always a setback. COVID hit everybody.
Yeah.
We, as much as last year we would have liked to think, oh man, a third shot at Dayton. We were playing our best basketball going into the A10 tournament. We were pretty optimistic at that point, but we still did have to win a few. I don't know if we weren't an at-large team going into the tournament. We still needed to do something in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And the third, had we won the first round I guess it would have been the second round, and then beaten Dayton on our third attempt, I think that would have been enough. But we still had work to do, so it wasn't a guaranteed thing. And Lord knows with this program, you don't know that we would have won that first game either. So yeah, it's just.
I hate the age-old adage we hear on the message board. I hate it. You know it.
It's just hard work. Yeah, I mean it is though. It is. I mean, when we've both been this our whole lives, so
I know.
So we know as well as anyone. I don't know though. I will say though, I would like to see Ford just kind of own up a little bit and stop trying to come up with scapegoats for it, because a lot of other teams have had to deal with worse stuff. I mean, think about Dayton last season. They had a lot more heartbreak than we did. So.
I mean, they deserve. They should. I can't believe they didn't keep whining. Like, they took the high road. I am so impressed by how they have taken the fan base included. I mean, the fan base could whine until the cows come home, and it wouldn't be enough for what they had to deal with. So the Billikens are in the NIT. Awesome. It's fun. It's going to be fun. We have a history in the NIT. And we get Jalen Johnson and the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Yeah, there's kind of it's a team I don't know a whole lot about, but there's a little fun narrative there to see him. So, I see a team that's at one game above 500 coming out of the SEC, and I'm not like on paper super afraid of that or anything. But I don't know. I guess I have to look at the matchup a little bit closer. Do you know a whole lot about him?
You know what? The only reason I know that Jalen Johnson is still active on that team is because Jack Raboyne texted it to me right before I tweeted it out. So thank you to Jack. I follow probably Ole Miss closer than I follow Mississippi State. It's so funny. I've noticed in the A10 Twitterverse that a lot of these accounts for other teams have like secondary teams that they're done. Like Belk Report is tweeting about Michigan. I'm just like, oh, weird. Okay. Well, Mississippi State lost to Dayton early in the season, 85-82 in 2 OT. That was over hoops giving.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I remember that one.
they dropped in, they took an L to Liberty. They've beaten Texas State, North Texas. That's an NCAA tournament team. Jackson State, they beat 82-59. Here's a common opponent, Central Arkansas, an 81-65 win in Starkville. So,
Yeah.
they beat Mizzou. That's interesting. I don't know. I think we're gonna have to do a deep dive, each of us, and then and reconvene for an NIT special. I literally we commit. Like I told you straight up when you joined on that, like I think a once a week is fine, and then now like we have to do like special episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I know Mississippi State. They've Johnson is kind of. I think he comes in off the bench for them. He's kind of he's like their fifth leading scorer. Yeah, here's their so they've got a big three. Iverson Molinar is their leading scorer, and they've got a couple other guys who are the bulk of their production. And then you drop down to a guy scoring 6 points a game, and then Johnson's giving them 5 points a game. So it looks like they're kind of top heavy in terms of their scoring production anyway. They've got a guy way down the roster, Anderson Garcia, and if I remember correctly, SLU may have recruited him at some point. He's out of the Dominican Republic, so I recognize that name. But otherwise, I've got to do a little more homework on this team.
So apparently they have a guy from Missouri, from Grandview, Missouri, which I've never heard of.
It's out by Kansas City.
Okay, it's in Jackson. Okay, that makes sense why we've never heard him, because we don't recruit Kansas City.
Yeah, not really
often. But yeah, that's so wild that we're gonna end up playing Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, I don't think anyone saw that coming.
No, we'll get into it later this week. Maybe a Thursday drop or a Friday drop or something like that. Before I head down to Dallas. What did I drop that? Oh darn! Didn't mean to do that.
Tell us a little more about that.
I thought I had a friend at least one. I thought I had specific. I was thinking of specific people in Dallas that I knew, and I booked a flight and bought 2 tickets to the NIT tournament. And my friends live in Austin, so that's fun. So got to figure that one out. If you're in the Dallas area, hook a brother up with some lodging. But I guess we'll leave the men's team alone until we can do an NIT special episode. We'll break down the bracket. Maybe have a guest on as well.
Yeah, I think one thing we didn't cover before, and we probably should, our first game in the NIT, SLU's first game would against Mississippi State would be on the 20th. And we are the third alternate for the NCAA tournament. Louisville being the first, Colorado State is second, and then we're number 3. Ole Miss is number 4, meaning that in the next I think it's in the next 48 hours here, right? Mm-hmm. If any team in the field has to drop out due to coronavirus-related issues, we would be number 3 on that list. So actually, I don't think it's 48 hours from now. I think it's within 48 hours. So until we play, that NIT game, I guess anything could still happen. So we'll be watching closely to see if anybody drops out of the NCAA field.
I think it should be noted on that topic that our Twitter poll, would you be content if St. Louis men's basketball were to receive an NCAA tournament bid as an alternate team due to a team dropping out because of COVID? We didn't get any reasons for no, which is interesting. I was hoping for some really fun reasonings why not, but we got 87.3% of Billiken fans saying yes, and 12.7% saying no. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I struggle to think of what the no's would be for. Is it just, is it pride or people like to put asterisks on certain records or whatever? But I kind of feel like, look, this is the landscape the way it is this year. And if that's how we get in, that's how we get in. I think I used this example before, but if somebody makes an all-star team because another player who got voted in is injured, they still, in the wake of their career, they say he was a 3-time all-star. They don't say he was a 2-time legit all-star and one-time, alternate all-star. So if you're in the tournament, you're in the tournament. I don't really, of course I would take it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'd love to see the timestamps on like the no votes, because I'm just imagining like a drunk Billiken fan. No, I'm not taking it. I don't want
that's
it.
right. Yeah, if you think it through, there's really I can't imagine there's any reason not to take it.
Moving on though, it's a little worse heartbreak. If you're following the women's basketball team, they're going to finish the season 12-4 overall, 9-3. They did eke out a close win in their first A10 tournament game, 59-58 against Richmond, but dropped the next to a 7-player UMass team, hot shooting UMass team, 90-81. This was a brutal ending to the Billikens season.
Yeah, it was. I felt really good too, because Richmond kind of scared me because of how I knew they could really defend. And the last game was a defensive battle that SLU gutted out in the end. But seeing this one kind of go to overtime and SLU take another defensive battle really heartened me. They kept the win streak going, and I thought, by drawing UMass and not Fordham on the other side, that was just, you couldn't have asked for a better break from that. And then they had a couple of players who just couldn't miss.
Yeah, Breen is just an outstanding player. And Philoxy too. I think they both had 28 points.
That's right.
Breen did to the Billikens what Dwayne Evans did to New Mexico State. Hung out in that soft spot and just knocked down shots from the free throw line all night, or the elbow. It was just, you just put your head down. It was one of those where every time she'd get the ball, she'd go up, make it. It was just over and over and over. It was on repeat. I don't know what Stone could have done different in this one. I thought UMass outplayed us on the defensive end. I thought their defense was outstanding. I thought they had a great game plan. They ran zone pretty much all game, but it just didn't seem like I thought at one point Julia Martinez in the middle of the zone was working really well, and then I guess UMass made an adjustment, and that was that. So
yeah, SLU gave themselves some opportunities. They wound up getting a good amount of offensive rebounds too. They turned it over a little more than you like to see. But, they shot okay. You're right. There's not really any part of their game where you kind of point at and go, this is what they did wrong. I think they ran into two players who were just, when you get a combined 56 points out of two players in a night, it's just their night. So it's frustrating. It's a little hard to take. And it would have been a really nice, I don't even want to say consolation, but it would have been a really nice outcome for SLU to win this one and get back and get a shot to go to their first tournament ever. How great would that have been if, with the men fighting it out and not knowing if they're going to make it right on the bubble, to know that the women are in would have just been beautiful.
It bummed me out yesterday way more than it probably should have, but they did turn it over a lot. It broke right too, because VCU made the final and the Billikens would be, I can't even.
I know. Yeah. And SLU split against UMass in the regular season. I think they actually played them back to back, didn't they?
At home at Chaffetz. Yeah.
Yeah. And so last time, they lost to UMass, it was their scoring was a lot more spread out. I think it was just probably not as well played a game for SLU. SLU couldn't make anything in that one. It was just kind of an ugly game. But then they came back and beat them 2 nights later. But yeah, both at Chaffetz.
I think sometimes you get these teams that only play 7 players, and it's almost that like their continuity overwhelms depth. Sometimes, having a rhythm and not being subbed in and out, it can affect a team with depth's rhythm, whereas a team that runs 3 players 40 minutes a game, like the Bonaventure, like the Bonnies.
I was going to say they're like the Bonaventure of the women's team. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how that works, a la the Billikens in 2019.
Yeah.
You ran, just a lot more rhythm. You get more time out on the court. You get into a groove and get comfortable.
Yeah.
So probably no postseason for them. I don't see them getting an NIT, but I don't think they're anywhere near that. So yeah, we got men's soccer. Men improved to 6-2 overall, 1-0 in conferences. They won their conference opener 2-0 against Dayton. This was domination from the beginning to the end for the most part. Goals in the 3rd minute. John Klein with a beautiful headed goal, and Christian Buendia in the 48th minute. It was an absolute rocket from the outside of the box of a Dayton clearing attempt that did not make it out. This was a great game.
Yeah, great to see. Good to get off to a good start in the A10. And when you score that early in each half, it just really sets the tone. This is one I didn't get to watch, but followed along on Twitter, and it was just pretty cool to see those coming in so quick. So yeah, great win, and then they'll go up against Bonaventure next.
I got a text from a soccer alum who said it looks like 73 out there. So he thought it looked like vintage Billikens. So
There you go.
that's
Yeah.
good to hear from someone in the know.
Yeah, for sure.
They got St. Bonaventure up next. Weird time for this game on Wednesday, 4 p.m. start. So if you're catching it towards the end of the workday, and then then Duquesne on Saturday the 20th. I think that's what that. Yeah, and that's to be determined for the time. Women's soccer has improved to 6-1 on the season, 1-0 in conference with a nail biter. I mean, this couldn't get any closer of a win, this couldn't have been any closer to a tie than it was. As the Billikens win 1-0 in overtime with 5 seconds remaining in that second overtime period. Did you catch this finish?
No, I didn't. But as soon as I read about it, it reminded me of the Marquette win against the men's team earlier this season. That was kind of a buzzer beater in overtime that put them away. So it's nice to be on the good end of this one. But it seems like SLU kind of dominated every facet of this game and just couldn't put it away.
It might have been one of the most dominant soccer games I've ever seen. Kind of like where both teams are competitive against each other, but also like the one team's just on a completely different level, if that makes sense. So like,
sure,
you're thinking think of like a World Cup game where like the U.S. is playing Cameroon, right, in women's soccer. Like it was that much of a domination. I think the Billikens had upwards of 40 shots towards the net.
Yeah, the box score shows they outshot them 40-2.
That is just I was just waiting for that third shot too.
They put 12 on net. So, I mean, credit to Bonaventure's goalie in this one.
Bonaventure's goalie had a lot to do. And like I said, I was waiting for that third shot to be Bonaventure's first goal. I think the 2 shots were at the start of overtime in the first overtime. I don't think they had a shot in regulation.
Yeah, you're right. They were both in the first overtime.
Yeah,
wow.
They didn't have a shot in regulation. So
thank God they pulled this one out, because you hate to see such a lopsided. I mean, anything can happen in
yes.
like soccer, but something that lopsided, you've got to put it away. So hopefully the experience of this one has them a little more, clear-eyed and efficient going into the next game.
19 corner kicks to St. Bonaventure's 1. I have to say this had the most mad scrambles in the 6-yard box of any soccer game I've ever seen. That Bonaventure just miraculously cleared off the line or hit the post. In hand up, I gotta admit this to all the Billiken fans out there. With 20 seconds left, St. Bonaventure had a goal kick. I actually had to run errands, so I left with 20 seconds to go and missed the goal live. So yeah, I'm kicking myself for that. Just things aren't breaking right for Zach these days. Men's basketball, but they have Dayton on Thursday at 3 p.m. So again, a late workday game you can catch on ESPN Plus. And then Duquesne on the 21st at 11 a.m. Early wake-up call again for that one. Women's volleyball went on the road today and took a 3-0 loss to Kansas State. It wasn't not really much to go on about there. They will take on VCU back-to-back on the 19th and 20th here in St. Louis. That'll be a tough one for them. Baseball is now at let's see. I had 3-11 prior to today's game, and I believe they picked up the win today. So that puts them at 4-11 with a 2-1 loss to Mizzou. That's promising, though. That's a promising result.
Yeah, they played them a lot closer than I expected in that one. And then, the losing to Western Illinois 11-0 yesterday, and then coming back and beating them 14-0 today. So maybe, taking that series with a big win on the rubber match and playing Mizzou close, maybe they're kind of going to turn a corner here.
Yeah, college baseball, man. It is so weird because it's so dependent on your pitching. And
sure,
anytime you get, like, if you get to a team's bullpen, you can come back from 20-0. Yeah, it's
right.
That wild. It is insane. So even in a game like that against Western Illinois, where you're up, you're down or up 10-0, anything can happen if you can get to a bullpen. So college baseball is so wild, just because it's such an individualist sport as far as statistics go outside of defense. Pitching.
They handled Mizzou by committee. Everybody pitched 3 innings in that one. So
staff game as they.
Right. So I guess they can kind of throw some different looks out there if they don't have that kind of ace, that you kind of need in college baseball.
Just a quick note again, or not again, but on softball, they improved to 5-8 after this weekend. They went a nice looking 4-1 in their 5 games this weekend, with the only loss coming to Western Illinois 5-4. So a close loss, which is good. But they won 1-0 and 6-5 against Western Illinois, and then 4-1, and then they won today pretty close as well. I don't have that note because it just happened.
11-9.
11-9. So, good weekend for the softball team. I finally got a chance to catch field hockey in action. I was pretty excited about this one, way more excited than I think anyone else on this in this city. But they took a tough loss to Davidson. It in a way mirrored that women's soccer game, only opposite. We were dominated for most of the game. I think we only had 1 penalty corner, which I don't even know how to get a penalty corner. I'm going to learn though. I'm gonna figure that one out. But it's fun to watch. I hadn't watched field hockey in quite a number of years, probably since the last Olympics.
Well, at least SLU's putting out a better team this year, so they're definitely going to be more interesting to watch and follow along with. So
I kid you not, I believe, and let me just fact check this one because we're a factual podcast here. But at one point during the broadcast, and by the way, I want to shout out Fordham's broadcast. Their announcer was fantastic. So good on him. I don't have his name, but he was really, really good as far as ESPN Plus campus produced broadcasts go. But he said that in the last season, the Billikens only scored 4 goals the entire season.
So they're already much better than last season.
Yes. Yeah. So it was actually 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 goals the entire season. 8 goals.
Wow.
In a 17-game season.
Yeah, that's miserable.
They got shut out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times, including a 2-0 loss at Davidson. So margin of victory, they're not getting better, but they put one past the Davidson goalkeeper this year. So, we've got movement towards we've got movement forward. So I'm happy for that team, and I'm happy for this new coach. It seems like she gets it. So see where it heads. So anything you think we should cover before we let the fans, the Billiken fans, get ready for the NIT?
No, I think that's it, Zach. I think we covered it. Just follow us on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Follow us on Twitter, Midtown Mad Pod. At Peter is a tweeter, and at Zach Miller MMP. And I think we should shout out West Pine Bills because they gave us a strong endorsement. They gave you a strong endorsement specifically. I gotta look and see what the tweet said. It was someone was looking. Jack Godar was looking for recruiting news, and West Pine Bill said Midtown Mad Pod is the best SLU recruiting account. Pistol is the most plugged in recruiting guy in the whole fan base. So
well, there you go. Yeah,
high marks
praise
for you. Which I can't spot a lie in that tweet. So thank you guys again for listening. And we look forward to getting back to you with a little bit more in-depth NIT preview.
That's right. There's more basketball to play. So, yeah, let's have fun while it lasts.
And hopefully I'll be able to generate some content in Dallas while I'm down there running amok.
I'm looking forward to our Twitter account when that's going on.
All right. Well, thanks, Peter, again for joining me. It's always, always, always fun. And I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Zach.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.